So I have several things here, and it is relationship based. And so the first article is by David Weinget, and he's a contributor on dating and relationship, and he's a coach and author. And this was out of the Huffington Post. I thought it was pretty interesting. And so, is marriage an outdated tradition? Is what it's entitled. Is marriage antiquated? The idea of marriage is something that we have planted in our brains since finding the one and finding the person that we're going to spend the rest of our whole lives with. Whether your parents were able to accomplish that or not, they wanted that story for you. So they wanted the story of the boy who meets the boy who falls in love with the girl who falls in love with the boy. In a perfect world, you're going to meet somebody and have a family, a happy life there ever after. Our childhood was full of stories about that. So when we head into an adulthood, we've got this story based on what we've learned through the movies like Disney movies and our families, our friends, the books we read, romantic comedies, etc., like traditions. So we're under this illusion that marriage is something that means we're going to spend the rest of our lives with that special someone, but that is just an illusion. All you're reading here, and all these people, this article is posted. Most of the times, people are in the section reading the post about the divorce out of the Huffington Post. So, which means that the white picket fence is an illusion and marriage probably didn't work out for everyone. So, the story that is created about marriage, which was really created by our parents, didn't seem to play out in everyone's life the same way. So you find yourself reading articles about divorce, or seeing stuff in the tabloids, or you see stuff on news feeds, or you see it on social media, how to negotiate the splitting of children in a nasty divorce, or all these other wonderful things that come with divorce. Let's go deeper into this, and let's go into the origins of marriage. So back in the 1400s, when people were getting married, it was until death do you part, because people would get married as teenagers and somebody would die like in their 20s and 30s. Their lifespan was not all the way to the 80s. People are living longer now, of course. So as we grow as a society, medical care has gotten better and better, and we figured out how to get rid of things like bubonic plague, gangrene. People are living longer and longer lives. And when they live a lot longer, they make many changes in their lives. People grow as people, they evolve, become different. They do different things as they mature. And then that when they were in their 20s and 30s and 40s. So what you did in your 20s, you're not going to do in your 30s. And what you do in your 30s, you're not going to do in your 40s. So a lot of times when some people are married, one partner grows, matures, and the other may stay stagnant. So I know according to the church and Bible, for some people who are religious, everything else, we're supposed to make the marriage work until death do us part. But a lot of times the marriage doesn't work for everyone because the people no longer work together well. So the real question is, why are we expected to make a marriage work and stay together and make each other miserable? So that wasn't the part of the story that was sold to us as children, and why you're growing up traditionally. So we're sold a story of an illusion of a marriage, this wonderful, perfect marriage. How beautiful it is, love to love somebody. That's what people have been taught, how beautiful marriage is and how wonderful it is. And you work on the marriage and you continue until you grow to love one another. And in a perfect world, that would be, ideal. And this author says he understands that. But so many people pick the person that they marry without fully knowing and understanding their selves. So many people will marry somebody at the wrong times in their life, and they're tired of being single, and so they meet somebody, and when they were super young, they got married when they were pregnant because that was the thing you was told to do is you got to have the baby in wedlock and not out of wedlock. And so they didn't know themselves yet. They were still young. So they got married like maybe 22 or younger, and they weren't ready for a long-term commitment. And now they find themselves 40 years old and wanting an entirely different life. Yet, are they expected to stay with that person? To be with a person that you no longer really feel is a person that you could continue on being married to? So, do you call that love? So, marriage has become antiquated in the sense that we need to stay until death do us part. So, it's not that I think marriage is an institution that doesn't work. Now, that's what the author says. I think if it's too institutionalized, it doesn't work. So I feel that marriage is something that needs to really be redefined in today's modern society, which I believe that I can agree on that one. People are still scorned upon when they say they're divorced. But if you think about it, when you go in to check that box in the doctor's office about your status, whether you're single, married, or divorced, you almost hesitate to check the box because you almost feel like you're going to be evaluated or judged based on whatever shape, form, or fashion because your marriage wasn't perfect or ideal and the marriage didn't work, or the illusion that you had of marriage, it didn't work out. But the true reality of that marriage might just be antiquated the way it is. What's wrong with having 5 or 6 loving relationships throughout your lifetime? Relationships could be like anywhere from taking you from point A to B, C to D, D to G, H to M. You grow as you get older. Maybe that's the new norm. Maybe it's exactly what society is all about right now. As we move faster and through the world and things are changing and evolving rapidly, relationships are changing, people are changing, we're evolving and we're growing. So I know that the story is great, but if you think about it, every story we've ever had since childhood, most of them never have panned out always the way we anticipated it to pan out. So the programming or social engineering that we had as children tend to really destroy some of the things that we need to do as an adult. What happens is that we actually work most of our adult life trying to get rid of that programming that we had as kids. So I think it's time that we redefine what marriage or life truly is. We need to redefine marriage in it of itself. So we need to redefine exactly what marriage is. We need to redefine exactly what type of marriage or marriage you want and what works for you as an individual. So you need to stand up for who you are. You shouldn't stay married to somebody you no longer love or you no longer want to be in a relationship that you feel is not going to work and you can't grow with that individual. If the marriage has hit the end, that's okay because there's probably another marriage or a relationship out there to take you down the next road so you can evolve. Life is a series of choices, and I think modern society has changed so much that we need to redefine and get rid of till death torture us part. So the author threw that in there because most of the people that he says that he's run into or he's known are in bad marriages, realize that it's pure torture to be in those marriages because they don't work out or they haven't worked out. And if you think about it, we've been given chances to live a life that, well, we need to live instead of just compromising on anything or settling. So we all know there's no perfect relationship out there, and it really isn't. So I'm kind of putting in my own opinions as well as I read the article going along, because I already read the article. But if marriage doesn't serve you anymore, what's the point of being in the marriage that doesn't serve you anymore? You don't feel love. You're not loving the person. You guys are not growing together. It's stagnated. It's just not working out. So because you took some vows that were created many, many years ago when people were dying out at young ages, it's perfectly acceptable and okay to be in a relationship and leave it, go the next one, and then grow and evolve into the next one, of course, and grow and evolve as a person. Maybe you need to be single for a while. So we need to redefine what marriage is. I think it's important. We need to listen to stop listening to just religion and old traditions and wise tales and things like that, from elderly people who they lived in another generation, of course. And church and religion, you need to listen to the way the world is evolving and is and grows, and how we grow in the same way that you're desiring to grow. So I believe this to be so, and that's the reason why a lot of relationships don't work out, because people try to stick to traditions, and everybody's can't stick to those old-fashioned traditions because we're not those kind of people. Um, that would be my best guess. And not even a guess, I'm just going to say my reasoning. So 13 reasons why men usually cheat. So this is by a Robert Weiss, LCSW, CASATS, Love and Sex in the Digital Age. So this is considered the digital age. This is in Psychology Today. So he's a therapist, and hey guys, it goes on to say that cheating is not the only option. So this is a excerpt of why possibly some men may decide to cheat on their wives or their spouses after almost three. And I'm reading as he wrote it. After almost 3 decades of working with couples decimated by infidelity, I can tell you that men who cheat on their beloved wives or girlfriends can amazingly be creative when they are trying to explain their reasons why. Sometimes cheating men will tell me, and women that they love, that their behavior doesn't really count as cheating because it didn't involve actual sex. So other times they find ways to blame others for their choices, their spouses, their bosses, and even other women. Yes, I understand that women also cheat, but I have written about the numerous times, including here. Says, however, this article is based on the new book, Out of the Doghouse, a step-by-step relationship saving guide for men that are caught cheating. Is about cheating men, not cheating women. So as a therapist, he goes on to write that I find most of the reasons that cheating men use to justify their infidelity very fascinating, because almost all of these reasons imply that cheating was only a logical solution to their relationship issues and other life problems. So I often find myself thinking, sure, cheating is an option, but not the only one among many. How about taking up a hobby or volunteering to make the world a better place, or actually talking to your significant other, your spouse, your wife, girlfriend, about what you're feeling and how the two of you might be able to craft a more fulfilling relationship? So those are some other optional suggestions without getting caught cheating. Wouldn't any of these choices be better than that of lying, manipulating, and keeping important secrets from a woman you're supposed to truly love? That's the point. I'm adding this in here. Do they even really love that person? Because first of all, if they're going to keep secrets and they're going to be manipulating and lying, then there may be some other underlying issues that they're not coming up with and they're not being honest about and truthful. But most men don't have that type of insight. So when confronted, they minimize, rationalize and justify their behavior by statements like these. So these are the statements that most men will come up with if they're involved in infidelity. So every guy wants, these are the statements some guys have come to him with. Every guy wants to have sex with other women, and when the opportunity arises, he takes it. Number 2, it's a man's biological imperative to have sex with as many as women as he can. Why shouldn't I be different? Any different? So if I got enough or better sex at home, I wouldn't need to cheat. I'm not doing anything that most of my buddies don't do. If you don't believe me, then ask them. If my wife hadn't gained so much weight, or if she was nicer to me or more attentive, I wouldn't have even thought about going elsewhere. If my job wasn't so stressful, I wouldn't need the release I get from online sex. Cheating, really? I mean, who would rationally call getting a lap dance in a strip club infidelity? It's just what guys do for fun. My dad looked at magazines and went to strip clubs, and that wasn't a big deal back then. So when I have a webcam chats, interactive sex, what's the difference? And so I'm going to stop right there because They're making a robot. I heard they're gonna make robot dolls, sex dolls. And so I wonder what this new age generation of people who are in these relationships, what the whole thing's gonna be, the deal's gonna be, or the deal breaker would be then. Would you leave your mate if they had sex with a sex doll? Would his excuse be, well, it's not a human, it's not a real person? What if he paid more attention to the sex doll and not his wife or spouse or whatever? Those are just some things I'm throwing out there. I'm thinking that's pretty interesting because we're coming into that time where that's going to be happening. So it goes on to say if the police had been out chasing actual bad guys, I wouldn't have gotten caught in that prostitution sting. Why don't they go after some real criminals? That's pretty intense. Um, and it reminds me of some people who have gotten caught like that. I'm only sexting and flirting. Where's the harm in that? I don't meet up with any of these women in person. It's just a game or it's just online. We haven't met each other yet. It's just a fantasy. So those are some of the excuses that guys would bring up that are usually into infidelity. So in the therapy business, we have a name for this type of reasoning. Denial is what it's called. From the psychotherapy perspective, denial is a series of internal lies and deceits people tell themselves to make their questionable behavior seem okay, at least in their mind or in their own thinking of their mind. Typically, each self-deception is supported by one or more rationalizations, with each one bolstered by still more falsehoods. In the eyes of an impartial observer, such as a therapist, a cheating man's denial typically looks about as solid as a house of cards in a stiff breeze, yet these men will doggedly insist their rationale is sound. This is, of course, begs the question why? Why do men really cheat in the first place? And why do sometimes they continue to cheat after they're caught, even in the face of a profoundly unwanted consequences like divorce, loss of parental contact, or loss of social standing, and the like? The truth is, all sorts of dynamics can play a part into the man's decision for engaging in infidelity. Generally, though, his choice to cheat is driven by one or more of the following factors. So there's 13 here. I think there may be 13. I'm looking. I believe there's 13 reasons here, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Well, they're laid out. Number one is immaturity. If he does not have a lot of experience in committed relationships, or if he doesn't fully understand that his actions will inevitably have consequences like hurting his partner, he may think it is fine to have sexual adventures. He might think of this commitment to monogamy as a jacket that he's wearing that he's kind of trapped into, that he can put on and take off when he pleases, depending on the circumstance. So he doesn't feel that trapping feeling. So number two is co-occurring issues. So he may have an ongoing problem with alcohol, drug abuse, and his decision making might be fuzzy, resulting in regrettable sexual decisions as well. Or maybe he has a problem with sexual addiction, which is a true issue. You can be addicted to sex, meaning he compulsively engages in sexual fantasies and behaviors as a way of numbing out or avoiding life. Insecurity, number three. That's what insecurity is. Maybe he feels as if he is too old or too young, not handsome enough, not rich enough, not smart enough, etc., whatever. An astonishing amount of male cheating is linked to, at least in part, midlife crisis. So women don't only have to change, men have to change as well. To bolster his flagging ego, he seeks validation from women or other than his mate using sextracurricular spark of interest to feel wanted and desired and worthy. Number four, it's over, version one. He may want to end his current relationship. However, instead of just telling the partner he wants to end it, that he's unhappy and he wants to break things off, he cheats and then forces her to do all the dirty work forces her to end the relationship. So number 5, it's over version 2. So he may want to end his current relationship, but not until he's got another one lined up. So he sets the stage for the next relationships while still in the first one. And that is so true. And I've heard guys say, oh, I only met her on the rebound. Have you heard that? Number 6, lack of male social support. So he may have an undervalued his need for supportive friendships with other men, expecting his social and emotional needs to be met entirely by his significant other. And when she inevitably fails in that duty, he seeks fulfillment elsewhere. Number 7, confusion and limerence versus commitment. So he might misunderstand the difference between romantic intensity and long-term love, mistaking that neurochemical rush of early romance, technically referred to as limerence, for love, and failing to understand that in healthy long-term relationships, limerence is replaced over time with less intense, more meaningful form. Number 8, childhood abuses, and this because he may be or latently responding to unresolved childhood trauma, neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse as well, etc. In such cases, his childhood wounds have created attachment intimacy issues that leave him unable and unwilling to fully commit to one person. So he might also be using the excitement and distraction of sexual infidelity as a way to self-soothe the pain of these old unhealed wounds. And so guys can experience a lot of abuse as children, some. And this might be a way of them, instead of, you guys are always meant to hold in their feelings, not cry, and be a man and man up. And so he may not feel comfortable sharing what has happened in his childhood. And it may come out in ways of violence, anger, rage, cheating on you, not really being committed in relationships. He can get the woman, but he can't hold the woman in a relationship because he has attachment intimacy issues. And I find that to be a lot of guys, I believe, that might be on these videos that have this deep-seated hate towards females. There may be some other issues going on. There may be one or two or a couple of them that have those issues, and they tried to lead a bunch of other guys who may not even had those experiences, but they try to build up a case for themselves so that they can have a following, so they can validate what their feelings are, but they're hiding what their real true emotions are on the inside, that they've been through abusive childhood. They might have experienced sexual abuse or some kind of trauma. Number 9, selfishness. Some people are selfish. It's possible that his primary consideration is just for himself and only himself alone. He can therefore lie and keep secrets without remorse and regret as long as it gets him what he wants. It's possible he never intended to be monogamous in the first place. He doesn't want a committed relationship. He never wanted to be with one person. He likes having multiple people rather than seeing his vow of monogamy as a sacrifice made to and for his relationship. He views it as something to be avoided and worked around. 10, terminal uniqueness. He may feel like he is different and deserves something special that other men might not. Yes, there are some guys out there that think like that, and usual rules just do not apply to him. So he is free to reward himself outside his primary relationship whenever he wants. Number 11, unfeathered impulse. He may never have even thought about cheating until the opportunity suddenly presents itself. And then without even thinking about it, what infidelity might do to his relationship, he went for that. And a lot of times I find this happens when you have a guy, he may not even want to have go out on his girlfriend or wife, but he's got these buddies and they like going out with different women and cheating and whatever. Or he maybe have a buddy that is interested in his girlfriend and wife. And so in order to get at that wife, he has to make that guy cheat. So he'll encourage the cheating, like take him to a strip club, take him somewhere, pick up a woman and make him, say, oh, all men do it, blah, 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 blah. And then he cheats. So that's the open door for him to come in and after his wife and girlfriend. That's another way of looking at it. Number 12, unrealistic expectations. He may feel that his partner should meet his every whim and desire, sexual otherwise, 24/7, regardless of how she feels at any particular moment. And he fails to understand that she has a life of her own with thoughts and feelings and needs that don't always involve him. When his expectations are not met, he seeks external fulfillment. And 13, finally, anger and rage and revenge. He may cheat to get revenge. He's angry with his mate and wants to hurt her, period. He just wants to hurt her. He wants her to know. He's not going to hide it. In such cases, the infidelity is meant to be seen and known. And the man does not bother to lie or keep the secret about his cheating because he wants that partner to know, this is what I'm doing. I'm mad at you. I'm pissed off. And yeah, I'm cheating. For most men, no single factor drives the decision to cheat. So it's different reasons, okay? So, and sometimes a man's reason for infidelity evolve as his life circumstances change. Regardless of his true reasons for cheating, he didn't have to do it. There are always other options instead of cheating. So couples therapy, golf, being open and honest with the mate that you're with and working to improve the relationship or separation or divorce. You can separate or divorce. That's the least. A man always has choices that don't involve degrading and potentially ruin his integrity and the life he and his significant other have created. Still knowing why he cheated can be helpful in terms of not repeating the behavior in the future. And so those are some reasons. I just thought that was interesting and it seemed pretty much about right. And then I did want to add in there, and I was going to put in the title, but it makes it long and lengthy. But I always hear people fighting and arguing, oh, who's the one, in the Black community in particular. Now, this is pertaining to the Black community. A lot of times people will argue, who dates outside of their race the most? And I found that here it says in the Pew Research Center, they have statistical data, and it shows actually that Black men are the one that date outside the race more. And dating is interracially is at an all-time high in either case. And so it's not just Black community either. So there are other people in other races that date outside their ethnic or nationality, ethnic groups or whatever. So key facts about race and marriage 50 years after Loving versus Virginia. And so this was a historical moment. And so in 1967, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Loving versus Virginia case the marriage across racial lines was legal throughout the country. So intermarriage was increased steadily since then. 1 in 6 U.S. newlyweds, 17% were married to a person of a different race or ethnicity in 2015. So a more than 5-fold increase, 3% in 1967. And among all married people in 2015, not just those who recently wed, 10% are now intermarried, 11 million in total. So here are more key findings from Pew Research Center. So you can look this up. This is easy. Anybody has access to these articles and all that. But I went down and panned down. It talks about everybody from all different walks of life who have different marriages. But here, number 4, newlywed Black men are twice as likely as newlywed Black women to be intermarried or interracial marriage. In 2015, 24% of recently married Black men were intermarried or interracially married compared to 12% of newly married Black women. So it was a lot more. And there are also notable gender differences among which it goes into Asian newlyweds. Just over 1/3, 36% of newlywed Asian women were intermarried in 2015, compared to 21% of recently married Asian men. Among white and Hispanic newlyweds, intermarriage rates are similar for men and women. So it has statistical data. It has the percentages and stuff. So a lot of times these videos are very, very immature that some people will do. They make it seem like there's only one group that's doing stuff, and it isn't. It's other groups from other nationalities or backgrounds, cultures have interracial marriages as well. That's one thing. The other thing, they put religion in it, and they'll sometimes come off as real racial. And there's a lot of xenophobia out there as well. Sometimes people don't want to marry outside the race for their own political or religious beliefs or their traditional beliefs. And so I took the liberty of looking up that word. And xenophobia is here. So it talks about, I'll just run through it. So it goes through, it is a fear and a distrust of that which is perceived to be a foreign or strange. Xenophobia can manifest itself in many ways, involving relations as well. And then it goes on to talk about it, how, which I feel like that's the problem with a lot of people that are in these like groups on YouTube. You'll have like videos where people will throw religion into it and they'll mention, who's supposed to be with what race and who's supposed to be with whom and why. And they'll use biblical terms and scriptures. And a lot of it is this. It is the fear or distrust of which is perceived to be foreign or strange. It can manifest itself in many ways involving relations and perceptions and in group towards and out-group, including the fear of losing identity, suspicion of its activities, aggression, and desire to eliminate its presence and secure presumed purity. So I even heard women saying that, a certain group, I won't even say it was in reference to the Black community. Well, you guys are the Hebrew Israelites, or you guys are, you're not supposed to marry this person. Oh, it's not about race. You're not supposed to marry with outside of your tribe and all this. And then they even brought in scripture about it. And then they had like a video of a white guy giving a sermon about how he just totally disliked the fact that, there's a point in some of it where he mentioned, why are all the NFL stars and NBA stars, if they're African American, they're marrying white women? And I felt the way he said it, he just totally did not. I felt in his reasoning, it was more about race. And this woman, she took it as, oh, I think he's right. She said he was right. And I don't think she really was really seeing where he was coming from. I just think he totally doesn't like Black folks. And he put it in his religion, and she pulled it up and she put it right on her video. And I don't even think that, like, let's say if it was a regular person that wasn't with the NBA and NFL, he wouldn't agree to that union either. It's just the fact that they happen to be Black. But there was a time where there were guys doing that who they came into money. They came from like maybe out of poverty. They became popular in sports, and they seemed to like ditch their Black girlfriends and wives and go for the white ones. And it did, for a while, it was like a trend of symbolism. Like we've actually arrived. We're so popular and famous and wealthy now, we can actually have a white woman. And so there were people that had that in their head that, if we don't have a Black woman, we can have a white woman. She's the trophy wife. It wasn't more about love. It was more about symbolism and you've arrived and how you look, on the outside versus what the relationship's really about on the inside, which it wasn't about love. And so some people were doing that. And so there is a point to some of it, but another thing is, I have said in previous videos myself, I said, if you're just marrying somebody because it looks good, or, oh, I don't want my baby's hair to turn out a certain way, or you have self-hate, you don't like yourself, even though you're Black, you don't like yourself. So you think marrying somebody of a different background is going to make the grass greener on the other side. You're sadly mistaken. I have said that, and I really stand firm on that. I believe if that's the reason why people marry, then that marriage is not going to be a good one. And if that's what your whole intent was, is to avoid Black women because you just solely don't want your kids to look a particular way, then your relationship is going to be, you know, there's going to be some drama. And I don't think every marriage is perfect. I think people are human and they're imperfect and they're going to make mistakes. It's what you can tolerate. And the thing is that, some people, maybe too, they will go for certain people because of beliefs. Well, they'll believe certain women do certain things differently. Well, she's gonna be more subservient. She's gonna be more quiet, and they have a certain perception. Sometimes Black people will judge themselves within their own group. And well, I don't want to be with this person. And I think the reason why there's more interracial marriage is because number one, it's supposed to be more socially acceptable now. You don't have the laws that you did back in the days back, when this was going on, Loving versus Virginia. That's one reason. The other reason is that now too, you have a lot of hateful things going on, and people are like resisting. They're like, this isn't true. I actually found somebody and they happen to not be Black, so there are loving relationships. They may be from another ethnic group. I don't find anything wrong with that. But if it's just experimental to where it can be harmful and hurtful to the both of you, then it's probably not a suitable relationship. That's what I'm saying. Some people put their spin on it or whatever. You can agree to disagree, but this is how I feel. It's my opinion. And those people are entitled to their opinion too. If they have those older beliefs, and some of that too, the reason why some people have those beliefs like that is because they probably lived in a time or they saw some really bad experiences with people who tried to, get involved with people from another background. And it just really was, it seemed to blow up in their face. And so that's why I said, if you're getting with somebody because you think this is the thing to do, it may not work out. And, people have scrutinized Kanye West and Kim Kardashian's relationship as well. And a lot of people feel like that, for example, they were not refuting the relationship so much. Some people are, but then some people say that, yeah, she's kind of taking him away from his culture to where she doesn't care. And now he doesn't care. And so there may be some truth in that. Well, from some of the statements that he's made recently have not sit well in the Black community. Might even bring more reason to why some people would want to not really, they would want to go back into tradition, these outdated traditions, rather than, deal with some of the craziness of, getting involved with, some of these people. But anyway, but each individual is different. I think it depends on the individuals themselves, what they're seeking in those relationships. Just because you're with somebody of a different background doesn't mean they're not going to cheat. They're going to be perfect. The grass is going to be green on the other side. I don't believe so. I think it depends on those individuals and what they're really wanting in those relationships. And if it's bad from the beginning, then it's going to be bad all throughout and to the end. And so I guess it depends, maybe that's the reason why those two are good together, because look at how she is and look at the things she says, look at what he says, and Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, maybe they're meant to be together in a strange way. We're not happy about some of the stuff that's been said, but maybe they're the only ones that appreciate one another. That's the way I look at it. I feel like the heat is off of me. The way I look at it is if I'm not with somebody that's abusive and they're going to put me through the ringer and treat me disrespectful or do these things that are listed here, why some guys will go out and engage in infidelity, the lying, not being honest, or they're just a habitual cheater. That's something that they do. They would have done it even if they weren't married. If they were with a girlfriend, they say, oh, I ain't got no ring on my finger, so I could go with whoever. I seen a story where this one lady, she said she was with this black guy, and they're both black people, African American. She said he would buy her everything, give her, gifts, take her, and he had money. Turns out he was involved in drug dealing. She didn't know that until later in the relationship. And he was born with HIV, and he did not tell her. He didn't disclose that information to her. And so she was keeping within her race, but look what he didn't tell her. He didn't tell her that he had this, what would could be something fatal to her, could have killed her. She was walking around with HIV, and she didn't know until she went and found out he was cheating. He was cheating. And then when she went and found out that she had this disease, he still was cheating. And then the girl he was cheating with, apparently he was giving it to other women. And he wasn't disclosing. He was born with HIV. He grew up in a time when you had children who were born, and still some people are born with the HIV. Now I worked at a hospices before, and I've worked at a private center where the families could live there if they had been excluded. At the time, they had the fears of AIDS and whatever thing, and they didn't have all this new technology medicine and modern medicine that they do now to keep people living longer. And so people would sometimes seek shelter because they were excluded from a lot more than what they are now when they found out what their diagnosis was. And so they would have children that sometimes would be born with the HIV. And so those children now would be like he is, an adult. And so they're supposed to let their partners know that they actually had it at birth. But who's sitting down telling people, oh, by the way, I have HIV, you know? And so these are things that might be the reason why some people are afraid to get in these relationships with certain people. They feel they can't trust them. And so that might be the reason why people are looking elsewhere, thinking, well, maybe if I get with someone else, they'll be more honest. They'll go to the doctor. They'll be more willing to tell their sexual history. They won't be so controlling that they're abusive. There won't be that habitual cheating. Well, to make a long story short, which this story is not that short, she did find someone else, and that person happened to be African American. But you're not going to always find people who you think look like you. Sometimes they might be from another background. Just because that person is from a different background doesn't mean that they can't love you. And that's my personal opinion. But everybody can agree to, certain people can agree to disagree, and then everybody has differences of opinions. There could be a whole lot of different viewpoints that people have on it, but I feel like in the long run, it's up to the individuals what they feel comfortable with and what they know that they can, who they are spending the rest of their lives with. Some people want to be single. I find that people make fun of people who are single and that want to be single, and they make a joke out of people who want to be single. And maybe the person already had experienced relationships and they don't want to go through that anymore. They're done with it. Maybe they just want to explore their lives and be able to grow on their own. And I don't find anything wrong with that either. But you got some people, they think everybody's supposed to be coupled up. I find that an insecurity issue. But with that being said, I'm going to leave it at that. And so pretty much this is at anybody's access. This is a think tank or a fact tank, and actually a fact tank. It has statistical data and historical things, anything having to do with U.S. politics, media and news, social trends. It even goes through social trends, people of different backgrounds, nationalism, stuff like that. And so anybody could look this up and see that it's not, interracial dating is not just in the Black community. It is not, I've heard people say, oh, you're whiting out of our race, you're whiting our race out, and you're taking our DNA and all this. Well, they must be doing it to other ones too, because from what I'm seeing here, it's happening with Hispanic community, it's happening with Asian community, it's happening in other parts of the world. So this is not a new phenomenon. So this has gone on. Look, There was the case way back in the days, 1967, probably even before then. Just that went to court. That particular case went to court. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it at that. Like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for listening.